Today I'm joining BookTube. I'm so excited. First, I kind of want to reorganize my bookshelf, and then I have so much to tell you guys and to talk about books. I'm so excited. When I'm filming, I feel like you can only see like kind of these two shelves, so I want to reorganize. I want ACOTAR to be our main focal point, and then yeah, so let's reorganize real quick. Right now my bookshelf is just ACOTAR, other books I've read or started, all of my Christian books, and then I was in a self-help era, okay, so these are all at the bottom, hidden where they will never be touched again. I know y'all can't see me right now, but I am gonna put all of my Christian books closer to the bottom. These are all like journals. I have so many journals. What are the vibes? Put ACOTAR here with Shadow and Bone because I have something to say about those. That's so cute. Okay, well, now I need to get a lot more books. Obviously, it'll get reorganized the more books I get. I need to come up with a name for you guys over on this channel, but welcome back to Reading with Sid. This is my new BookTube channel. I'm so excited. I redid my office to be book-oriented. I'm probably gonna bring these shelves down. Like, things will change over time, but for now, I don't even have that many books, which is actually what I want to talk about today is my book journey and how I got into reading and why I'm so obsessed with it. So basically, I had a goal in 2023 to read 4 books, and I read exactly 4 books. I definitely read more than 4 books. I just realized that I didn't enter them all on my Goodreads. I think I read 5? Maybe technically 6. Okay, it all started on New Year's 2022 turning into 2023. I was at my now husband's cousin's house and I was really bored and they were all like screaming and it was so loud and I was kind of tired and like stay up until like 4 or 5 in the morning when your whole family hangs out. Like they've done this many times. I was not prepared or accustomed for this. So I don't remember where I found this book or whose book it was. I don't know if it was at their house or I found it at his parents' house, but I found the book, Everything. I was like, well, this is the only book I have. I've never been a reader my whole life. I've been anti-reading. I was like, oh, reading is stupid. Why not just watch a show? I couldn't believe that people actually enjoyed reading. My stepmom always tried to get me into reading. She's a huge reader, but I couldn't do it. Even though I did enjoy it when we were forced to read books in high school. In English, we could choose books that we actually liked off of like a list. And I loved the books. Like I would fly through them, but I never chose to read outside of school. So I pick up this book, I put in my AirPods, and I read the entire book. It's not very long. I think it was like a 300-page book in like a couple hours. And I was like, wow, that was a whole experience. I didn't even really like the book, but I'm someone who always throws myself into stories, whether I like them or not, and I just find a way to make them enjoyable. So I did enjoy it, and I was like, okay, reading era. I went book shopping with my now sister-in-law because she was in her reading era as well. And I found the series. I got on TikTok and looked up like non-spicy, good books. I know I love romance and fantasy, so the books that I found, I was at a Target that I found on TikTok was the Shadow and Bone series. And this kind of got me into reading a little bit. So let's talk about these books and then I'll talk about what actually got me into reading and why I'm so obsessed that I have a BookTube channel now. If you don't know, the Shadow and Bone series is fantasy with some romance. There's like multiple love interests. There's a lot of politics going on. And it's kind of like Chosen One. Like she's like the one who can save everyone. Light versus darkness type of thing. I know there's also other books that go with this universe, the Grishaverse. There's like the Six of Crows series and I think something else too. But anyway, so this series, I believe you're technically supposed to read first. I'm not too sure because I actually didn't finish them. So Shadow and Bone, I finished pretty quickly and I really enjoyed this story. It was a little slower, obviously, fantasy getting into it, but towards the end, I was like obsessed. I need to knock out finishing the series. I don't know why I haven't yet. I did rate this at the time a 4 stars. I don't really remember too much about it, to be honest. And they all are like one book in my head. So I'll just stick with that rating. Then of course I picked up the second one, which I love because of the colors. I really, really, really liked this book. I actually remember like kind of being obsessed with it, but apparently on my ratings, I only rated it a 3 stars. I don't remember. I thought I liked this book more than this book, so I'm not sure. Anyway, the second one is called Siege and Storm. I read these two over like a couple of months. Like my reading goal was 4, remember? Okay. And then I took a break from reading and then finally came back to this like a few months after that. And my bookmarked page is 260 and I think it's like 400. I don't know why I haven't finished this. I should really just sit down and finish it right now. But this is the third book. It's called Ruin and Rising. And I was enjoying it, but I think after this, the way the second one ended, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's just like characters I really don't like and things that happen that I was just like, this is stupid. So I think that's why I kind of stopped reading it. But it got me kind of into reading. I was like, okay, wait. I was like throwing myself into a whole world, and every night after work I would sit down with some tea and just read for a few hours. And I loved that. It got me off of social media. So if you're still thinking about getting into reading, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying start with this series, but like just give it a try. It is seriously so magical. So then my husband's favorite fantasy world, he doesn't really like movies. He does like to read. He doesn't read too often, but he is obsessed with Lord of the Rings. So I had gotten him The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy for his birthday in 2023, and I promised him I would eventually read them. So this November, last November, 2023 November, I picked up The Hobbit. I did an audiobook, like a good amount of it, because I was like, basically I hadn't read in like 5 months. So I was like trying to get back into it, but this was such a fun, cute little book. I feel like it's a classic everybody needs to read at some point. It's Tolkien's like first of the series that he wrote. It's really cute. It's a good story. And I've seen the movies extended edition a couple of times of Lord of the Rings. I don't really like the Hobbit movies, but I have seen them as well. I don't know why there's like 3 movies for 1 book. So yeah, I gave it a shot and I really liked it, and I was planning on reading Lord of the Rings and like surprising my husband by reading them all. Then I was on TikTok and everybody would not shut up about ACOTAR. This is actually the second one. I loaned out the first one and haven't gotten it back yet. Oh my gosh. If you need something to help you get into reading, let me introduce you to the ACOTAR world. So this is the only one. I read ACOTAR and this in 2023. So that puts, if you count the one I read on New Year's, which I may have finished before midnight, I'm not sure. These are all the books, plus that book I don't have, and plus ACOTAR that I don't have right now that I read. Well, I didn't finish that one, so we'll take that out. So that's 5 books. 5.5 if you want to count that. I literally am about to make like 12 videos on this series. I'm not even kidding. So if you love this series, you'll definitely want to subscribe. A Court of Thorns and Roses, ACOTAR, Sarah J. Maas Universe. I am currently reading Throne of Glass, but I want to talk about this for a moment, okay? The first book, I was told, is a Beauty and the Beast retelling fantasy romance. And that's what got me, was like fantasy romance. I didn't know there was going to be smut in it. I don't like smut. I try to avoid smut, but this book series is so good that I dealt with it. So I was reading the first one and I was like really committed to reading this whole series. I had bought it in the box set. My best friend was going to read it at the same time. So I didn't like the first book, but I like pushed through, and I will make a video about that. But the last like 100 pages, oh my gosh, I got into it about halfway and then the last 100 pages just like blew my mind. And that was when I knew I was about to be obsessed with reading. Then I picked up probably my favorite book of the series. It's a really tough tie for me, but A Court of Mist and Fury. This book is everything a book should be. It is magic. It is perfect. Ugh, oh my gosh. So if you haven't read ACOTAR, the way I would explain it is like a fae fantasy romance book series about a human who gets taken into the fae world kind of like against her will. There are so many twists and turns. There's magic, there's like politics, high lords, all that kind of stuff. And it is just so good. And now that I've read the whole series and I'm getting into all of Sarah J. Maas universe, there are so many things that tie together. It's literally like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but in a book series. So I like 1,000,000,000% recommend this series to literally anyone who wants to read, because this got me into reading. I read this book, which is about what, 500, almost 600 pages, over 600 pages in 5 days because I was so obsessed. Then the second one, the rest of the series started started my reading journey for this year, 2024. Wings and Ruin, for some reason, this kind of put me in a slump because it was so freaking good. I couldn't stop thinking about it. 5 stars, by the way, of course. This one I struggled through like the end of November, all of December, and I actually ended up finishing it in January. Granted, I was like really busy all of December and didn't have as much time for reading. This is like a, 700 page book. And I kind of struggled because I was so obsessed with like the romance and the found family in this book that I just couldn't get into this one, even though it has all those same things in it. But my best friend was like, okay, I'm on the 3rd book now. So I just pushed through and I finished it in like a few days after I finally got back into it. And now I can't stop thinking about this book. I originally had rated it a 4 stars because it took me so long to get through, but I wish I would have just pushed through because I don't ever stop thinking about this book. Like, it is also a 5-star book for me. I have dreams about things that happen in this book. It is so good. There's like a big war, obviously. Not obviously. For some reason, I always think it's called A Court of War or something because I call it ACOTAR, but it's A Court of Wings and Ruin. Amazing book. Then there's a little novella which I read in 2 days, A Court of Frost and Starlight. So the fact that I'm reading books in like a few days, I just know I'm gonna be a reader, right? I went from being obsessed with shows to like, I'm canceling my Netflix, I'm obsessed with books now. And this book is the cutest little book ever. I am gonna rate this book probably a 3.5 stars. I think it's so cute. It's like multi-point of view. You get a lot of like details about like their life. It's more like slow and cute, happy ending vibes, even though it's not the end. I loved her. A lot of people are like, oh, no, you have to read it. It's so cute. It's so good. I read it on a snowy weekend. I couldn't even leave my house because it was icy. Like, I loved her. Also, the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, that I don't have, I rate a 3.5 stars because the ending was so good. It was so slow to get through. It's like the entry fee into the series. Then I read this. This book is a 5 stars. I don't even know, 800 pages. I could not put her down. I read this book so fast. I don't even remember. I think it was like 5-6 days, something like that. Okay, the main character, no spoilers, you pretty much hate her until this book. A lot of people still do hate her. I feel her and relate to her, and it's a lot of like mental challenge, like the character development, and it's a lot of just like in her mind, and her mind is really dark and traumatic, and I can kind of relate, and I just love the development, the friendships, the romance. I think this book is like beautifully written. I haven't read that many books, but I can't imagine a book writing a scenario like this better. The only downfall is this book is very spicy. Like, too much for me. I get the ick pretty quickly from it, and the good news is that all of the spice scenes you can pretty much skip through. It doesn't affect the plot, really. Honestly, with all of them, it doesn't really affect the plot, but I could handle it. In the other ones, I was like, oh, okay. This one was a little rough on that. I almost had to knock it down from 5 stars because of that, but I feel like that's more of like, you can skip past that. The story is still so good, so I'm still gonna keep it at 5 stars. Anyway, so now I just wasn't planning on ranting about ACOTAR for this whole video, but it got me into reading. I love it so much, and I read Assassin's Blade already, and I'm reading Throne of Glass right now. I actually have a book club just started. We're gonna read Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which I've heard a lot of good things about, and this will be with like the girls in my family, so I'm excited about that. And I've just really gotten into reading, so that's why I'm making this channel. So I'm gonna be doing like TBRs and reading vlogs and plot reviews and all of that, some spoiler free, all that kind of stuff, because I love to yap and I love to read. So putting yapping and reading together, it's gonna be so much fun. So if you guys want to read along with me, reading with Sid, make sure to subscribe. I love you guys. Comment down books I should read because I just now got into it, and I'll see you in the next one.